Hey everyone, it's me, Donna. Okay, I was able to upload my results from 23andMe, my DNA files. I was able to upload that to myheritage.com, which I didn't know it at the time, but after I saw my sample report, I got to wondering, and so I went back and I did some reading and found where the company said that even though they allow you to upload your DNA for free and they allow you to connect to relatives and everything for free, they will only give you a sample report. In other words, they're not going to give me the full report that they would someone who bought the kit. So if you buy the kit, they're going to give you the full report, but if you just upload your DNA that you did somewhere else, then you're just going to get a sample report. So I didn't know that at first, but I do now. But still, it's good. I mean, I was able to see more relatives. I thought that was good. So even though the ethnicity part was kind of a disappointment, but understandably so, because I mean, they got to take care of their paying customers, and I can understand that. But as far as the being able to connect with more relatives and find relatives or whatever, that's a big thumbs up, because I was able to see that more relatives through this. So I think that was wonderful. So to me, that was well worth it. And also, it did fill in some gaps for me where 23andMe left off, which I thought was really cool. So to me, it was worth it. All in all, it was worth it. It's just cool to have two reports. Even if one of them is just a sample report, it might pick up on things that your first report doesn't. And of course, it all goes back to the people pool that these companies use in order to get DNA samples to compare you to. So, MyHeritage naturally is going to have maybe more or less different ethnic groups to compare you to as 23andMe. So that's great, because you kind of get something from both. And I did. I got something from both reports, okay? All right, with my 23andMe, I will briefly go back over it. It had the results as British and Irish, 52.9%, French and German, 20.8%, Scandinavian, 7.7%, Iberian as 2.5%. Then it lumped a lot of things together because it couldn't sort out exactly where some of my DNA was. So it just lumped it all into a broadly Northwestern European area, which is 14.5%, because it is different from the regular United Kingdom DNA, so it couldn't put it in that. Although people naturally from that area, they're spread out all over the place, including the United Kingdom, but because it couldn't pinpoint it down, which that will probably change later on when they get more people. Eventually they will, I think, be able to link it all up, but that's what they did. They just went ahead and just put it in that category and called it 14.5% of that. And same thing with broadly Southern European. They just lumped it all in this category right here, and it was 0.1%. And then same thing with just broadly European. It just got lumped together, 1.2%. And then my Sub-Saharan African, that was 0.3%, which it ended up being Congolese. Okay, so when I did upload it to MyHeritage and I got the results back, since it is a sample report and it was free, they just went ahead and lumped a lot of it together into the North and West Europe category, English, and just called it that. And there was 96.2%, which I know is not the truth because it is scattered out all over the area. So not all my DNA comes from the UK. So it's good that I did the 23andMe. That way I know. But if I was a paying customer of MyHeritage, I'm sure it would have been very similar to 23andMe. So I can't knock them for that. But what is real cool is they took some of my DNA that 23andMe wasn't able to exactly pinpoint. So I guess they have more of a Greek gene pool to compare me to. And I ended up with 3.8% Greek. I thought that was so cool. I thought, yay, which 23andMe did kind of dance around that, but it just didn't pinpoint it out, whereas MyHeritage did. And another thing that they pinpointed out is my 1 point, or just say 1% of Middle Eastern. So I got either Egyptian or Southern Arabian, Turkey, Iran, Iraq. Some of those areas, I've got DNA from that region. So I could be Egyptian or any of that. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. It's so neat that for something like this to be able to pinpoint that out when this wasn't able to. I guess because maybe they don't have enough Egyptian and maybe Southern Arabian, those areas to compare to. So they weren't able to exactly pinpoint it down, whereas MyHeritage was able to. So I was pretty pleased with that. So it's kind of neat, to think and to wonder, who in my family was there, like way back, like who was actually in Egypt and those areas. Like it blows your mind to wonder and to think, where your people are from, and to think that maybe some of your ancestors were around when, during the pharaohs and maybe Jesus and, whatever, a person believes. I'm not trying to get onto a, religious tip here, but if one believes in Jesus, just imagine, to know that your ancestors were there, maybe, possibly, within his presence, or, somewhere in the neighborhood when he was there. I mean, that's kind of a cool thought to have. So, yeah, I just found that to be pretty interesting. So, another cool thing that, like I said, it shows you is, let me get out of this. Let's see, go down here and get rid of that. Okay. Let's see, no, that's not it. Right here. Okay. Like I said, it shows you your DNA relatives. And I ended up with some extra relatives that I did not know. I still don't know who these people are, but they're closer to me than a lot of the people on the 23andMe site. So I've got 7 extra close relatives that I didn't have on 23andMe, and it's going to be interesting to try to figure out who these people are, So yeah, I found that to be fascinating. Let's see here. And of course, I ended up with more 6,650 extra distant cousins. Whereas 23andMe, I ended up, well, it just said way more, so it could be that number too, I don't know. But it just said that I had a whole bunch of distant cousins. Whereas this actually tells you how many. It's, that much. So that was pretty cool. Okay. Let's see here. Alright. And then right here it shows you where your relatives are actually from. Let me see. Let me go. Oops. Let me go back. So what's cool about this is you're actually able to click on these areas and go to those people. In other words, if you've got 88 people in Canada, you can click on that option and go to those people and be able to check out their DNA compared to your DNA and all that stuff. Whereas 23andMe, all it did was tell you, how many people you had in a certain region, it's particularly the United States for me, and it just told you percentages of DNA shared and all that type of stuff. But if you wanted to connect with your relatives, you had to go and just do the DNA, go to the My DNA relatives tool in order to connect to them. In other words, you couldn't use something like this and click on it and go right to them. You had to go a different route to connect to them, which, I mean, is still good. I mean, I'm not complaining about that, but I do think that this is kind of more convenient because you can just go, pick out any region you want where you do actually have DNA relatives that are on MyHeritage and connect right up to them. So I think that's kind of cool. And see, it even shows areas where you have kinfolk in, like, Great Britain. I've got folks in the Middle East, Scotland, Scandinavia, even though in the sample report it's not telling me I've got Scandinavian, but because of my 23andMe report, I do know that I do have Scandinavian. But what gives it away is the fact that it's telling me I have, a whole bunch of relatives in Scandinavia. I actually have 2,673 relatives there. So, yeah, that kind of gives it away, which I know people move around, and you might have somebody who's not even from Scandinavia living in Scandinavia who happens to be kin to you. But when you've got this many people, there's a pretty good odd that some of them are original to the region. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, and let's see, let's go to this part. And then, see, it goes on down. I've got people who are in the Spanish and Portuguese areas. I've got over, 936. So that tells me right there that, yeah, there are people who originated there who have my DNA. And like I said, the 23andMe report proves that. It says that. Same thing with the Italian. And of course, even Nigerian, like I was saying, like with the African thing on 23andMe, I noticed that I've got 0.3% Congolese, but it did show specks of other African areas, but it just didn't tell, like there wasn't enough DNA there for them to even, I guess, assign a number to it. But then when I look over here and I see like Nigeria and stuff like that, then that kind of helps me see, okay, yeah, maybe some of that's Nigerian. You know what I mean? And it's like over 100 people. So, I mean, what does that tell you, Let's see. And even Kenya, there's like 41. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. Okay, and then this last part, I even have people like in Central Asia. There's like a few of them. But yeah, it does kind of make you wonder, you know. Anyway, let me go back. Okay, right here. All right, it talks about, all right, West Africa and then even West Asia. There's like 24 people in West Asia. So, I mean, surely there's a few of them that originated from that area. And it could, include maybe parts of Russia and surrounding areas, as well as maybe even actual Asian people, but yet there's just not enough DNA in me to actually assign a number to it. But obviously I'm kin to people from that area. So, and like I said, whereas 23 had to lump it all together, I guess that's the only way they could do that. So I guess you just got to have a certain percentage in your DNA for it to actually show up. Although, you know, the DNA is there and you do have relatives there, it just isn't enough to show up. Okay? And even in China and Vietnam, I've got 14 kinfolk there. So, yeah. And then the Philippines and Malaysia, there's 13. And even in Jewish regions, like in North Africa and stuff like that, there's like 12. In Japan, I've got 11 relatives there. The Polynesian areas, 8. North Africa, 5. And South Asia, there's 4. So, which, you know, with those lower numbers, you know, it's hard to tell. You don't really know for sure. But you can go find those people and then kind of click on your DNA link up and kind of see where you do match. And I've noticed on the free report, it will say, even though you don't have DNA from this region, there's still something to the effect of there's still enough to connect you to this person or something like that. Even if you have a high DNA link to this person, due to the fact of it being a free report, and they're not going to tell you, you know, they're not going to completely give it away and say, yeah, you know, you two have this, you know, DNA exactly. It will kind of hint around to that, if you know what I mean. So, but anyway, that's pretty much what I got out of my Heritage free upload. So, I mean, I can't complain. It was free, and it did fill in a few gaps and gave me something new to think about. And, yeah, it still allowed me to connect up to new people. So, hey, I mean, I can't complain. Yeah, that's a pretty good deal in my book. So, anyway, hope everyone is doing well. Bye.